Well, welcome back to the Arizona Craft Beer Awards and Festival Beer Review, presented by Phoenix Magazine. I'm Matt, and we're here with Johan. And Johan, I got to admit, I haven't been to this place before, Grand Avenue Brewing. I'm a little ashamed because it is a really work of art, and they do great beer here.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. I hadn't been here either, and the space is really cool. The patio is really cool. We're here with John and Matt, who are partners.
Yeah.
Love that. And we've already tasted some of the beers, and they're all fantastic. So we're super excited to be here to talk to you guys. Or you're going to be at the beer festival in October, which we're very excited about as well. And give us a little intro. What do you guys? Where did this brewery start? Come from? How long have you been here? Give us a little taste.
Yeah, I'm John Coll. I bought this building about 17 years ago, and that was about the time I started home brewing. And this building was kind of a basket case back then. And I was home brewing in the back, and I had some cars I was working on, and I was making 5-gallon batches of beer. And then I thought, well, if I can make 5 gallons, then I can surely make 10 gallons. And then the building started saying microbrewery to me, and I bought a 30-gallon system, and everything tasted just as good on the 30-gallon system. And at the time, I met Matt and was helping him on occasion brew at the brewery he was working at. Matt's a professional brewer, and we developed a friendship. And he came and tried my home brew, and he said, wow, this is really good home brew. And he talked me into, we needed to do a 7-barrel system. It's just not humane trying to brew 1 barrel at a time.
Yeah.
So I slowly started buying pieces to the 7-barrel system. So it was just a 1 piece at a time endeavor, and fix one more thing. And here, 17 years later, we're 3 years in on it. We've been here for 3 years.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. What about Matt? What about your background?
So my perspective, like he's a lawyer, I'm an architect, so it kind of like follows the trend of most brewers starting up as some other, high-end profession. But I've always been, I'm actually a native Phoenician, one of the few, but I'd always been attracted to more of the craft beer or even the Irish pubs or whatever before craft beer. And as some of the first places started opening up in the late 80s, early 90s, I would just gravitate to those places, having some beers, even if it was just Guinness or whatever. But then, McFarland's and Rio Salado and Four Peaks and everyone else started firing up. So kind of gravitated to those places, and, still kind of doing my trade in the design field, but kind of sitting there happy hour Four Peaks going, it would be really a lot more cool to start a brewery than, just drink at one. So
yeah,
maybe that was mid 2000s. So then I kind of did it backwards. Instead of homebrewing as a hobby and then going professional, I want to go professional. So maybe I should learn how to make beer, and then start homebrewing from there. So got the kit, started out 5 gallons, 10 gallons, blah, blah, blah. Did that for 2 or 3 years, went through brewing school. And then it's like, all right, well, start writing a business plan. And then things happen, where else you get an opportunity to brew, start struggling around, firing up a brewery. And then, going at it, kind of learning on the job, so to speak. Back then, that's kind of where John and I intersected, because he'd come by my brewery and go, hey, I'm thinking about starting a brewery, So then actually the duty of a professional brewer is to talk homebrewers out of starting breweries, because
which you try to do
at the time, they don't know what the heck they're getting into.
You really don't know what you're getting into.
I'd bring him along to festivals and events and this and that, and show him the ropes and help, have him help me brew and kind of see all the slogging out grain out of the tanks and everything else. And he's very persistent. So, eventually, all right, well, this sounds like a good idea. And then, once I came down here as a former architect and checked out this building, I was like, all right, I'm sold. This is going to be awesome. So maybe that's like 2012, 13. And then we started, again, like as John said, piece by piece, kind of getting it together and working on it. So
it's
awesome.
Kind of funny, like in talking to Matt, I was lamenting to him about, why I was looking for a second career apart from law. And I told him, well, it's because it's very abstract. And many times you have to explain the result. It's so abstract. And with beer, you're going to make something, it's fizzy and it's carbonated. It gives you this euphoric feeling. And it's sort of a meritocracy. Either it tastes good or it doesn't taste good. It's tangible. And Matt said, well, that's exactly why I got into it, because it wasn't tangible. I go, what do you mean? You're designing buildings. He's like, no, it would just be on paper and I'd never see the project done. And then lo and behold, Matt and I'll be driving around somewhere and I'd be like, hey, I designed that section of the freeway, all that landscaping and all that, And so, 15 years later, he sees the fruits of his earlier labor, but we both kind of got into it for the same reason. And it turns out our previous careers are good skills to have in connection with running a brewery.
Yeah.
For example, he took lettering. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but
it's probably the nicest chalkboard in the valley.
Perfect chalk. His skill stack is fantastic.
One of the perks of being old enough to learn drafting before computers.
Yeah, that's amazing that's all handwritten.
Engineers always have the best handwriting, right? I mean, you're taught to do that for a reason. So somebody doesn't confuse a 5 with a 2 when they're cutting something, right?
But yeah, I mean, I told John a while back, it's like, yeah, both our former careers, like you do something for a long time, like maybe some people are happy with your work, some people hate your work. You're brewing beer. At the end of the day, you've made a beer. Generally, that's going to make people happy. So you don't have the backlash.
It kind of sounded like with your background in architecture, maybe you were drawn to this area, right? Because it is a historic area of Phoenix. It's the arts area now. We're off of Grand Avenue, just west, about Pierce and 12th Street or 12th Avenue, and this building has been here since what, John? The 40s?
So yeah, it was built in 47, and
sure.
It has an interesting history. It was originally a sheet metal shop, and then after that, after about 8 years, it was the Mighty Midget Syrup Company. And then at some juncture in the 70s, that name became politically incorrect, and they were.
I wonder why. What was bad? Syrup?
But they became a premier beverage, and then after that, there's a picture on the wall over there, pretty cool. It was a used tire shop, and the guy gave me that picture, and he would buy big truckloads of tires, and it's kind of a funny story. The first thing I do when I'd get the used tires would be, I'd paint them black so they look new, and he had a sticker, and then he had a route where he'd go to all these gas stations where they sold used tires, and he goes, and then one day, garages stopped fixing cars and they started selling big gulps and hot dogs and candy bars, and nobody sold used tires anymore, and the business just ended. But
wow.
So it had been an artist studio after that, and then I bought it.
I love it.
And
cool history.
Just kept fixing it up.
You guys have definitely talked a lot about the building, and it's, like I said before, it's super cool in here. It's a really cool space, and you also have your patio, which is really nice. You have kind of multiple outdoor areas around the whole front section of the building.
We kind of have 3 different patios. It's about 3,000 square foot of patio space.
I love that. Well, we're coming up on the time of year where that's going to be really awesome.
Sure. The patio weather. One of our patios is evap cooled. We have 2 fire pits. In the winter, you can get a s'mores kit, and we give you a big fork, and you go out and make s'mores. And
love that.
Yeah.
And you guys, I mean, speaking of food, you guys also do food here, right? In addition to the beers?
We get really good marks on our food. We do a smoked baked potato. You can get green chili or barbecue pork on that. You can get carne adobada on that. We also do a mac and cheese, and you can get those same toppings on the mac and cheese.
As a man with braces, I appreciate the mac and cheese offering wherever I go, and also a pretzel and beer together. Can't beat that.
Yeah, we've got quite a good little pub menu.
You guys do like a brunch too, right?
Sundays you can get an egg on anything.
I love that.
We do a couple egg dishes on Sundays. So we've been getting really good marks on our food. Everybody
That's
likes
awesome.
it.
Well, the other thing that you're getting good marks on is your beer.
I was going to say, don't put an egg on the beer, right?
Well, you could.
So let's talk. I already had it. I think you still have some there, Matt. But the Happy Jack, you say it's kind of your top seller, right? It's your cream ale.
Yeah, it's one of our best sellers.
Tell us about it.
It's I came out here and I really couldn't find a good cream ale. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and a buddy of mine sent me a recipe to homebrew cream ale, and I tried it, and we just kept playing around with the different ratios in it, or I did, and it drinks. It's a style that's meant to drink like a light lager, and so the history of that style, a lot of people think it's supposed to be creamy, but that's kind of a misnomer. That style became popular around the turn of the century. A bunch of German immigrants came here, started brewing lagers, and that America at that time was mostly ale breweries. So they came up with this style to mimic a light lager. So it's got 50% Pilsner malt in it. There's some flake corn, and then it gets dosed with a lot of dextrose. And what that does is it lightens it up and gives it a nice clean finish on the end, makes it taste kind of like a lager, but it's bigger than a lager. It's not thin like a lager. It still has some ale qualities to it.
Is it like less carbonation type thing in this beer?
It's got normal carbonation on it. Yeah. We like it. It does quite well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed it a lot, and you're right. It's not like other cream ales that typically go for that really sort of silky, creamy mouthfeel. It drank a lot more like a lager. It drank more. It was just like crisper, but it's not quite as like light on the mouthfeel as you would find in those light lagers, and just more flavor too.
If you research the history to that beer, it's really, a lot of people make them sort of creamy, but it's really supposed to have a little bit of a lager bite on the finish.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be like a vanilla cream, like you're drinking ice cream, right?
They do tend to get lumped in with Kolsch's and blonde ales and that sort of thing, which are more light-bodied, lighter, less alcohol kind of things. But the cream ale is kind of like, I guess, the higher end of that trio.
It's a blonde. Yeah,
but
it's in that style category.
In a lot of categories and judging and whatever, it's kind of thrown in with those guys. It's
right.
one big lump category.
Yeah.
It is its own thing.
Yeah.
So then you have so that one's called the Happy Jack, and then you have this Blackjack, which is a black cream ale, and I just had that. I've already finished mine, so I can't show it, but tell us about that one. That one's kind of a bit of a variant of the Happy Jack.
Well, it's our Happy Jack, and we ordered too many grain bills of Happy Jack, and so I had heard of this style. It originated in Canada. It's pretty obscure, but they make a black cream ale at some of the breweries in Canada. I thought, well, Matt. I went to Matt, what can we do? And we put our heads together, and Matt said, let's add some black malt to it. And one of us said, well, while we're at it, let's put it on nitro. And it's nice. It drinks like Guinness. It's got a little more flavor than Guinness.
Yeah,
and
100%.
It's a nice, easy drinking beer.
Yeah, it's very good. Big fan.
Which is one of the things we're trying to do, is sort of have something for everybody here. We've got a lot of Belgians. We're 7 barrels. So we kind of view our whole, we have some staples that we'll always have and keep making, but Matt's been around, I've been around. We're not afraid to just make a 7-barrel batch of something out of the chute and
I love that.
Give it a go.
I love that. That kind of creativity is one of the things I love about some of the smaller breweries that aren't afraid to do that, whereas some of the bigger ones find their money makers and kind of stick to those, and then find themselves, being creative in their pilot systems and some smaller systems, but you guys are just full creativity all the time.
Yeah,
I love that.
This is a beer menu that you're not going to see anywhere else. I mean, with all the Belgians, the barley wines, and
like I talked to a lot of home brewers and whatever, but the quirk about the brewing process is it's about a 8, 10, 12-hour process regardless. If you're making 5 gallon a batch in your carport, you're making a 7-barrel batch like we are, you're making a 60-barrel batch at some big brewery, it's all the same 10 to 12-hour process. So my point of view is maybe I just made the best beer I've ever made in my life, and now I only have 5 gallons of it. So you might as well just go for as much as you can make of something.
Totally.
And see how it goes,
Totally. I love it.
I like it because on your guys' website, something that I thought about when I was judging the beers, and I want to read what you guys have on their website, and Johan, you'll appreciate this. It says, our philosophy is to make excellent drinkable beers in a range of styles that each merit ordering another or the ordering another thing is what I always come back to. I'm like, I could finish that, but would I want to get it again? And there's some beers that you might be judging, or you're at a bar and like, no, that's a one beer. And we've talked about that before, but why is that important to you guys? Because that's always been important to me. The ability to drink a beer, right? Finish it, and I want to go back to the bar and get another one.
Yeah, I think that's a problem with a lot of beers, that there are. I'm not going to name any names, but some beers are designed just to be a taster, a 4-ounce taster, and you can maybe wow somebody with a 4-ounce taster. But is it cloying? Are you going to want to drink 2 pints of that beer or 2 10 ounces of that beer? And for us, that's kind of our test of a drinkable beer. It's sort of, I don't know, Matt, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, like the brewery education I got, it was all about balance. It wasn't like, oh, you got to have the most extreme hops or malt or alcohol percentage. It was about balance, and balance is kind of equates to drinkability. So
100%.
If you got a nice balance, I've got some hoppiness, I've got some alcohol, I've got some nice roastiness or whatever, but it's not overwhelming me, hitting me on the head with a hammer. Then I think I'll have another one. And then finish is has a lot to do with that. Is it dry on the finish, or does it build up as too cloying, too sweet, too hoppy, whatever? And, from the nerd brewer perspective, that comes into like water profiles and other things, right. Where it finishes on your palate and that sort of thing. So
there should be, like with all drinks, there should be a beginning and a middle and an end. And no, don't get me wrong. There's some dessert beers like our barley wine is 12 point something percent. Sure. I don't think you want to have 2 of those, but maybe, but if you're at home, but it should finish clean enough on the end so it's not cloying, and it makes you want to have another sip. Whereas if it finishes cloying on the end, you're just going to have one.
Yeah.
And so to our way of thinking, the drink is like a little story that should have a beginning, a middle, and the end. And the end should just want you to come back for the next chapter.
Yeah, totally. You got to come back for the sequel.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of go back to what you were saying about like variety of styles. To me, coming to a brewery like this with that many different styles gets me excited about having, 3-4 beers, because each one of them is going to be different. And I get to try a bunch of different styles. And I don't necessarily have to get a flight. I can have full pours of a bunch of different things and have a little bit of an adventure. Whereas, ordering 4 of the same beer can be awesome if you love the beer, but I like that kind of variety. So I love that. I mean, you guys have a West Coast IPA, you have stouts, you got the cream ales, you got a brown ale, you got an amber, and those are styles that not a lot of craft breweries are doing, is the browns and the ambers. Like you don't see that too much.
Hardly ever.
You got some good sours, which a lot of people don't like beer, but like sours. Then you got your Belgians. Like you guys got such a cool spread. Tell me a little bit about your sours. I know one of your other top sellers is your raspberry sour.
That's one I have here.
And I know that when you brew a sour, you're introducing bacteria and things like that. Do you have like a specific tank or system that you use for that, or do you have to go through and sanitize? I've heard that that's a bit of a process.
Like a sour dedicated tank?
Like most sours you'll find at American craft beer bars are kettle sours. Means you do your mash, and normally right after your mash you would boil the beer, and the whole point of boiling is you kill off the bacteria that's active in the mash at the time. But kettle sour, you just let that sit and let it sour, and you can actually accelerate that souring process by adding in some different ingredients. Basically lactobacillus, same bacteria in sour cream and any other vinegar, yogurt, any other kind of sour food product you might have is active in there, and it'll do its job over 3, 4, 5 days. Now you've got a nice sour beer, but obviously that bacteria is active. But then now it's in your kettle, you boil it, you've killed off all that bacteria. So now once you've done that boil, it's just like a standard beer. You run in your fermenter, you add your yeast, finish fermenting, everything else. But
it doesn't contaminate.
So all the bacteria is dead if you've done it right. So downstream, you don't have to worry about anything funky. And there's a lot of people that will sour in barrels and other things, and that can get kind of out of control if you
Yeah,
kind of go.
there's different types of sours, and actually, the sour beer sort of dates back to there was a lazy brewer, and lactobacillus just naturally hangs out on grains, and so if you just leave a kettle, a mash tun go, it'll just sour up on its own if you let it go 3 days. And so what probably happened is some brewer was mashing, probably drank too much, fell asleep. It was a Friday, came back on Monday and just said, oh, heck, and just finished mashing out and making it. And it wound up being sour without adding anything to it. And it became a style. It's like, and that was Berliner Weiss, that style, which we had one of those as well.
Yeah.
But so that's sort of probably how it originated. There's other sours that are open ferment brewed. You can get real geeky about all that stuff.
I like those happy mistakes. You guys ever like stumble on to a beer or a favorite recipe just by mistake at all?
Do you want to take it up?
No, they have one. They have one for sure.
A couple. But
Which one that we drank just now is the next?
No, we have a Gosa on our board. It's called Salty Senora, and a Gosa is technically a little bit of sour, a little bit of salt to kind of like mess with your palate a little bit. We oversalted it, and then we're like, all right, well, this is bad. How do we fix this? And you can't really take salt out of a beer, but we figured out by throwing enough. Several different experiments, lime juice, mint, other things. We kind of tempered it enough. And
we
then,
diluted it. Yeah.
So then by the end, we put it on tap. Like, hey, what the heck? It's sort of like a margarita mojito, and let's see how it goes. And then it's actually like, and then because any beer you do, whether you think it's the best beer you ever made or the worst beer, it's really your customers and your drinkers that decide for you.
Totally.
And we've had a really overwhelming positive response on it.
It's awesome. Not my favorite beer, okay? And we put it out there, and I just thought, okay, well, this is better than a drain pour. But actually, people come in and get growlers of it, so that was kind of a surprise.
And if we had done that beer to style, if we got the GOSA guidelines out and did it to style, be fairly, everyone would go, oh, okay, that's all right, that's good, that's fine, but like it wouldn't have that the punch that the one we did.
Well, I mean, it was good enough to earn a name, I mean, some of those mistakes get just called like experimental beer 1 or experimental beer 99, something like that.
And I've also told John over the years, like, no one really has to know what went on behind the scenes, right?
No, never.
So here you are talking
well, now they do.
But actually, our first sour that we made, it was a new system, and our chiller went out, so we couldn't get the beer cold, and we had moved it over into the boil kettle, and we had no way of knocking out and pitching yeast. So I said to Matt, Matt, we're just gonna chuck some lactobacillus in and make a sour, and so that was our first sour. Was actually an equipment malfunction.
That's funny.
And now we're kind of known for our sours. So
I love that.
We're regularly making sours. We think it's an underserved niche.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do some niche stuff here with the Belgians. And not just do the same old.
Which is a really great segue to the beer that I've been looking forward to this whole time. And that's your bourbon barrel cherry Dubel. So I don't know, do you guys want to crack into this thing? So this is a bourbon barrel aged Belgian Dubel with cherries, and you said it was aged in Woodford.
Yeah, we got a hold of 2 Woodford private reserve barrels, luckily. So this sat in those barrels for about 8 or 9 months. We would just keep tasting it, and then one day we said, "Oh, that's pretty good." So.
I love that. I'm so excited to try that. Is this your kind of style beer or not?
I do love a good bourbon barrel aged anything. Sometimes with barrel aged beers, you don't get a lot of the whiskey off if it's like hasn't sat there. Some of that stuff from like Phoenix Beer Co. It's intentional though, like just to get the oakiness into it, but not necessarily like the strong boozy flavor.
Right.
I like both, honestly.
Well, and you're a bourbon guy too, right?
Yeah.
So like,
if it's boozy, I'm a big fan of it. If it's not, I still appreciate it.
Give it a try. This one's got a nice balance between the cherries, the oak, and the bourbon.
And this one won.
You get all three of those.
Yeah, you guys won an award for this last year at the Denver competition.
For this at the Denver International competition, we haven't entered. We're in your competition. I think we put some beers in, but
like the oak in any beer is kind of a mellowing thing, right? So whatever intense flavors you have, it mellows them, blends them all together, just like whiskey and whatever else. So
yeah. It's surprising, like the mouth feels very light, like it's got a very light body, and I like that a lot. That's
the bottle conditioning, so that's something we do. We just had AJ's come in and try some of our bottles, and they like 2 of our beers for AJ's, and we have to fill out the packet and show them our insurance policy and go through the process. But
sure.
Perhaps it's looking about 3 months or so.
AJ's Fine Foods,
we should
right?
Get into AJ's
awesome.
At that juncture. And we're not there yet. We're still going through the process with them. But
do you guys do distribution?
We're going to self-distribute to AJ's, and that'll be the one place we'll be in. And that's going to be our baby step into bottling. Right now, we roll kegs around within a mile of us.
Yeah, I saw some of your stuff has been on it. Angel's Trumpet.
We've kind of got I guess more or less a self-imposed 5-mile radius or whatever, because we have to deliver the kegs, pick up the empties, et cetera.
For whatever reason, I just pictured you literally rolling a keg down Grand Avenue.
Yeah, you can't go that far with a big old keg on your back.
So it's got so that's the bottle conditioning, but ton of oaky, just it's very smooth and mellow. It's not boozy at all. It's just very
to
malty
that point,
and mellow and just delicious.
I have a bunch of friends who aren't into the boozy kind of beers that I enjoy, but this one they would love because of the fruit that comes forward on it, and there's a little bit of hint on maybe the back of the mouth of that boozy.
It's about 8.9% is what the ABV is at, and there's about 88 pounds of Montmorency cherry puree in this beer, and this is a beer I started brewing every Christmas, and this is the first time that
we had done it full scale.
We ever did it on the big system and put it in bourbon barrels to boot on that, and we think it's really lovely. It turned out it'll be something that'll be seasonal. We'll make it again.
And fingers crossed by the new year, you guys are being a grocery store and in AJ's, hopefully. Fingers crossed,
It's
right?
looking like that. Yeah.
Awesome.
We're getting our bottling production set up, and
this will be, if it does happen, this will be one of them?
No.
Okay.
So it'll be, initially, it's looking like our Raspberry Sour and our Happy Jack will be the 2 beers.
Very cool.
So...
Well, I might need to pick a bottle of this up and save it because this is the kind of beer I like to have with Christmas dinner.
The one bonus, we've gone a little bit old school retro, doing bottle conditioned beers instead of the 16-ounce cans and whatnot. But the bonus to it is it gets better over time. So
these can save, right?
Yeah. So that beer's been bottled for over a year, but it gets better month by month. And
love that.
And that's one of the things with fruit beers is when I started home brewing this. It took about 7 months. There were so many cherries in that for that beer to mature and taste right. And on the big scale, it's closer. It's almost half that. About 5 months, it start tasting right. But some of the very heavy fruited beers, they need to get some age on them. They're almost like a wine in their quality. And so in 210 gallons of beer, we put about 88 pounds of very tart cherries in this beer.
And honestly, the cherry is not, it's balanced, right? Like it's not like this, it's not too subtle. It's not overwhelming. It's just that perfect. And the way it interacts with the bourbon and the Dubel, those Belgian, malts and everything. This is a great beer.
You still get beer on it. It's not like it's cherry Kool-Aid or anything. It's very much beer. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very good. Well, congrats.
It's starting to hit me, by the way.
Cheers. Yeah, I love it.
Cheers. No, that's one of the things with all of our beers is we try to find a balance.
Yeah.
So that, again, there's a beginning and a middle and an end to it. There's a little bit of a flavor ride that has nice finish.
Totally. So you guys are going to be part of the beer festival in October. We're very excited to have you be a part of that. Have you done a lot of beer festivals before?
In the past, yes.
Yeah.
So we were
like before COVID, I'd done, I don't know, countless, getting into 100 some festivals, and then like, all right, another festival, got to pack up all the gear, do it at the festival. But then once we didn't have festivals for a year or so, it's like, oh, now I'm craving festivals.
Right.
So, this year has been a good kind of reboot and get some new festivals going and restart the old ones and get back to it.
We're looking forward to your festival too.
Yeah, totally. Will this be but it won't be Grand Avenue's first beer festival, right?
We've done, strong beer and Wild and Woody and whatnot this year so far. And actually a couple before the shutdown and everything.
Okay. Cool. Well, we're excited to have you.
Yeah, Wild and Woody. It's kind of like in your ballpark with cask condition.
That's why we had to go. We had to represent.
We took some bottles to Real Wild.
Yeah.
We got excited about that because everybody else was doing
cask and bottles and draft.
We had this there.
That's awesome.
And, went over quite well.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
man, these beers are fantastic. You're gonna get pours of them at the beer fest. I had a couple things that I wanted to ask before we wrap this up. A couple things from Google. People Google Grand Avenue Beer Company. The first thing that comes up is, does Grand Avenue Brewing serve drinks? And I think we answered that today, right?
I think we did. Yeah.
So fantastic drinks. The other one is, what is the ambiance like here? How would you describe the ambiance of Grand Avenue Brewing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would call it industrial warm. It's got a really warm vibe, and this place was a sheet metal shop, and so I've just tried to keep the bones of this building, keep the integrity of it, and everybody who comes in loves the art on the walls. On the wall I wanted to get to on the wall is a lot of the adaptive reuse buildings on Grand Avenue, and I wanted to talk about the street a little bit.
Sure. This place has really revitalized over the last couple of years, hasn't it?
You know what? It really has. There's a lot of great businesses up and down the street. I'm going to forget somebody, but just immediately to the north of us is Bacanora, which got nominated for a James Beard Award. Testall, which got in the top 10 best new restaurants in Phoenix in AZ Central. There's Cha-Cha's Tea Lounge, Trans Jam Cafe.
I think Bacanora, like
Charo Hipster.
That is a place that reservations are insane. It's hard to get a table at Bacanora. It's a hot place.
You were just telling us that when people have to wait for a table, they can just walk over here and grab a beer.
Get a beer.
It's a thing. So it's like sometimes it's a 45-minute wait.
De facto tap room
or
waiting room.
The Bacanora waiting room. Yeah.
People come here, have a beer. They see our menu. We refer people to. A lot of times, people will ask us for dessert. In the wintertime, we've got 2 fire pits. We'll do a s'mores kit, but we'll send people to Novel Ice Cream down the street for an ice cream filled donut. It's like a little community on Grand Avenue, and it really does. You were mentioning it has kind of a small town vibe, but it's downtown Phoenix as far as I'm concerned.
I love that. Yeah. When I was driving here today, I was just driving down the road and just thinking wow, this almost feels like a downtown Gilbert, or like one of these little downtown, small town downtowns, or the suburb downtowns. But downtown Phoenix is 3 blocks that way. So it's right in the center of all of it.
You can ride your bike here from right downtown.
I love that.
We get people flying in from out of town who walk here.
That's awesome.
So the streets really come along. Having been here 17 years, I can tell you that it maybe took a little longer than I had hoped, but I feel like it's arrived. The Egyptian Hotel's about to open, and they're going to have music 7 days a week at their venue. they're right down the street.
And you guys do music here too, right?
Yeah, we have some artists who play originals, and so maybe once a week, we'll have a different artist here now and then.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
sporadic, but we try to do that.
Well, to go off the ambiancing, it definitely feels like you said, kind of industrial, but warm. Like it doesn't feel industrial. Can feel so cold sometimes, where everything is metal and steel. Like you got the bar is this beautiful wood. Everything feels very inviting and warm.
The only
but
thing
still,
cold
like
is the
you almost
beer.
feel like you're in a really nice garage.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It was one of our first reviews back in the day. Is like, it feels like hanging out in your buddy's garage if you had a whole bunch of beer and some.
I love that. That's the kind of place I'd hang out at.
We built a lot of the stuff here, like all those high top tables. My dad designed those, and
that's awesome.
and he built this bar. You know, he and I got together and talked about using leftover shipping container parts for the bar. Our brew deck in the back that Matt stands on when he brews. My dad designed that, and we had a buddy weld that up for us. So like all this stuff is pretty well thought out. We've built it over time.
You could tell it's a true passion project for all of you.
Yeah.
And the art in here, like what's in front of us here, for sale from local artists and stuff like that.
So
right?
this plant is from my buddy Greg Hawk at Hawk Salvage.
Mhm.
He's got a curiosity shop, and so we let him sell some of his stuff here. I don't make any money on it.
Sure.
But he brings in plants, and so the scenery changes. The artists on the walls, a lot of it, they're my friends, and so all the pictures of the buildings on Grand, those are for sale. That's not really what we do.
No, but it's a venue to allow that, because I think a lot of artists kind of struggle getting their stuff.
It changes
out and
up.
about,
So,
right?
so
Yeah.
yeah, the place is kind of always evolving, and you know, if you come here often enough, you'll see new things.
Sure.
To me, that shows that this is a celebration of this community, of this area of Grand Avenue, of
Yeah.
downtown
True
Phoenix.
neighborhood.
Yeah, it
hangout,
really
yeah.
feels like a good neighborhood hang. So I think that's the coolest part about that.
It
for sure.
is pretty much everybody up and down the street
Love it.
knows each other, and it's a great little community. It's more organic and more mom and pop,
Yeah,
and less, commercial.
sort of like the Melrose district uptown.
Yeah, I don't
Kinda
disagree with that. That's
similar.
A little bit funky.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's coming into its own. It's really come a long way.
that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, for everyone watching, make sure you come down to Grand Avenue Brewing Company and check it out. They'll be at the Beer Festival October 22nd out at Heritage at Sportsman's Park in Glendale. So that's the grand lawn of the Cardinal Stadium.
Yeah, we'll just rename it.
really
It's a
great.
great lawn,
Yeah.
but we can rename it the Grand Avalon.
Yeah,
Sure.
there you go.
Yeah.
Did I say Grand Avalon?
Yeah, you said the Grand Lawn.
I don't
but
know.
I kind of like that.
Phoenix Magazine law.
That's right.
Yeah,
Grand
something
is
like
good in
that.
front of anything.
Yeah.
Grand, yeah.
It's this barrel aged Dubel that has me mixing my words up. But yeah, check out azcraftbeer.com and make sure you come visit these guys at Grand Avenue
Yeah,
Beer.
John and Matt. Hey, Matts are taking over the podcast now, Johan. We're
I know.
on a mission to interview every Matt in the area. So.
Yeah,
There's a lot
when
of-
there's finally another Johan in town, we're gonna have to invite him on the.
There's no other way to we have to have that.
It's a high bar to. I'm just kidding. Well, thank you guys. Really,
Thanks,
thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, and we'll see you in October.